Michael Jackson had never truly immersed himself in the world of drugs before the devastating accident that changed the course of his life forever. In 1984, while filming a commercial for Pepsi, a carefully planned moment involving pyrotechnics went horribly wrong. What was meant to be a dazzling visual effect turned into a nightmare in seconds. Flames erupted too soon and engulfed his hair, burning his scalp in a shocking and painful incident that would haunt him long after the cameras stopped rolling. Those few catastrophic moments did more than scar his skin. They set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately cost him everything. The new documentary from TMZ, titled TMZ Presents Michael Jackson 30 Fatal Seconds, revisits that tragic day with never-before-seen footage. The raw video captures the terrifying instant when the pyrotechnics malfunctioned and flames consumed the top of his head. Watching the footage makes it clear just how severe the burns were and how quickly the situation spiraled out of control. The injuries were not minor, nor were they fleeting. The damage to his scalp was profound, and the physical pain that followed was intense and unrelenting. To manage the agony from those burns, Michael was prescribed powerful painkillers. These medications, opioids meant to dull severe pain, initially served a medical purpose. They were given to help him cope with the lingering physical suffering caused by the accident. However, what began as legitimate treatment gradually evolved into something far more dangerous. The relief the drugs provided did not just quiet the pain in his scalp. They also offered an escape, a temporary calm in a life that was constantly under scrutiny and pressure. Over time, that reliance deepened, and the line between medical necessity and dependency began to blur. The documentary lays out how quickly that dependence took hold. Michael, once unfamiliar with such substances, found himself increasingly reliant on them. The physical trauma from the burns may have been the starting point, but the emotional and psychological toll of his circumstances likely compounded the issue. As the need for relief intensified, so did his tolerance. The opioids that once eased his suffering became insufficient, and the search for comfort and rest grew more desperate. Sleep became one of his greatest struggles. The lingering pain, combined with the pressures of fame and a demanding career, made restful nights elusive. According to the documentary, this relentless quest for sleep eventually led him to rely on propofol, a powerful anesthetic typically reserved for surgical settings. It was not a conventional sleep aid, nor was it intended for routine use outside a hospital environment. Yet for Michael, it became the answer to nights filled with exhaustion and frustration. The film traces the heartbreaking progression from prescribed painkillers to the ultimate dependence on propofol. What started with a tragic accident during a commercial shoot evolved into a medical spiral that no one could fully control. The drug that finally allowed him to sleep also carried immense risk. In the end, it was propofol that took his life, turning a search for rest into a fatal outcome. The documentary also explores another consequence of the 1984 burns, an increasing fixation on his appearance. The damage to his scalp and the trauma of the accident reportedly intensified his concerns about how he looked. The burns were not only physically painful, but emotionally distressing, especially for someone whose image was so closely tied to his identity and career. The film shows how this incident contributed to an obsession with plastic surgery, as he sought to regain control over his appearance. Over time, that obsession grew stronger. The documentary recounts moments when Michael's desire for procedures led to tension with medical professionals. At one point, a well-known plastic surgeon refused to perform additional surgery, believing it was not medically appropriate. Rather than accepting the decision, Michael became furious at being denied. The rejection reportedly struck a nerve, highlighting just how deeply his concerns about his appearance had taken root after the accident. TMZ Presents Michael Jackson 30 Fatal Seconds presents these threads as interconnected pieces of a larger story. The burns from the Pepsi commercial were not an isolated incident, but the catalyst for a series of struggles that compounded over the years. The pain led to opioids. The opioids led to deeper dependence. The desperation for sleep led to propofol. The physical trauma also fueled an obsession with altering his appearance, creating additional emotional strain.